Welcome back, everybody. If you've been following along on our channel, you know right now our chickens are going through a molt. We've got temperatures in the single digits coming up, and we've been trying to increase their protein intake to help them through this time so we can get their molt done and get them back to laying eggs. So today we're going to share another way that we're adding a high protein snack to their diet. So for anybody who has a stocked pantry, you know one of the things that you see everywhere on videos and on the internet is rice and beans, rice and beans, rice and beans, stack it to the rafters. Well, a good use for some of those beans, like here I have pinto beans, is as a protein supplement for your chicken. So what I'm going to be putting together is only going to have two different ingredients in it. The first one is going to be our pinto beans. So I'm going to start by taking these pinto beans. I'm going to measure out a cup, and we're going to get them into a container. We're going to cover them with water, and we're going to have them sit overnight. Well, good morning. It's the next day, and my beans have soaked overnight. Before we move on to the next step, I kind of want to go over the whole thing about why I soaked the beans overnight. Now, you're going to get differing opinions on this. Some people are going to say, oh, you never have to soak your beans. Other people are going to say it's going to kill you if you don't soak your beans. So I fall kind of somewhere in the middle on that. The scientific reason behind soaking your beans overnight is, one, very simple. It makes them cook quicker. But other than that, it also breaks down the complex sugars and helps to break down something called lectin that is in beans that can cause nausea, vomiting even in people, causes gas. So if you eat a lot of beans and you get gassy, that's from that and from the acids that are in those beans. And by soaking them 8 to 12 hours overnight, you're breaking a lot of that down. And then when you cook them, it breaks that down even more, makes them easier to digest. And some people say it even makes them healthier for you by doing that. Now, we soaked the beans. We filled this right to the top with water last night, and the beans have swelled up a bit. So they're not right up to the top of the pan, but they're maybe not quite double what they were for size yesterday. It's important at this point that we make sure that we dump out the water that we soak them in. We're going to rinse them a couple times, and then we're going to use fresh water when we cook them on the stove. So now that I've strained and rinsed my beans, I have them in the pot that I'm going to cook them in, and I've added fresh water to that. So before I get this onto the stove, it's time for us to get our second ingredient, which is going to be corn. So I'm dressed for the cold. I'm out in the chicken coop, and I'm going to go in, grab some corn to grind up. While I'm in there, I'm going to give the girls a treat so that they don't try to jump into the bin with the corn. So our little cover for the cans has been working well. I'm going to distract the girls a little bit here. Give them some of the black soldier fly larvae that they love. And while they're distracted, I can grab some corn. Some whole corn. Get this covered back up. And then we'll go out into the workshop side and get this ground up. So I'm going to grind all this up. I only need 3 cups, but if I have any extra left over, it'll go to the girls for scratch. Well, as is normal in my household, things got put in a little different order here. We had an unexpected visitor come, so we had to go out and shovel some snow and got to see our grandkids for a little bit. So I threw the beans back here on the wood stove. So they've been cooking for a few hours, but I've got my corn. I'm going to measure out 3 cups, and I'm going to put it in with what was originally 1 cup of beans. Now, I'm using a 3-to-1 ratio with the ground corn and the beans. If I was going to do rice with the beans, I would probably do a cup of rice, a cup of beans. You can do this in whatever ratio works best for you. This is just what we do. So let me get that measured out here. And all right, I got my 3 cups. I still have plenty left to go back out into the coop for the chickens for scratch, and that'll be all ready for when we need it. So let's take this over to the stove and get this stirred in with our beans. So let's see here. So our beans are doing well. Let me get this cover out of the way. All right, so the beans still have a long way to go, but I'm going to stir in my 3 cups of corn. Now at this point, if I needed to, I would add more water. Right now, the big thing is going to be letting this go until the beans are soft and the corn has swollen up. And now it's a waiting game. One important thing to remember is you want to just occasionally give this a stir, check and make sure it's got plenty of water in it. Not until it's just about done are you going to let this water just evaporate off. I'll come back to you in a little while and I'll show you how it's doing. Well, it's only been about 25 minutes. I wanted to give you an idea on how this looks. Now I had this over on the left of my stove, which is like a high heat burner. So I moved it all the way to the right of my stove, which is more a low heat burner. Now this is something that you've got to keep an eye on. At this point, it's definitely going to start sticking if you don't keep it stirred occasionally. I'm also going to add some more water to this. I'm just going to use the hot water I've got right here on the stove because my beans need to cook more, even though the corn is pretty good as far as swelling up. But I want the beans to cook more because they're not quite ready yet. So even after less than a half hour, and you can see the difference. So we're going to let this go longer and I'll be back to show you where we're at. It's starting to get late and I think I'm done with this mixture for tonight, but I wanted to show you what it looks like before I take it off the stove. So the beans have been going for about, I'd say 8 to 10 hours and the corn 6 to 8. And this is the consistency now. So all I've done through the process is keep stirring it because it does like to stick. If you're concerned about having the beans cooked enough, you can always put the beans on the stove early on their own, just in water, and let those boil longer before you add the corn, because the corn does make it very starchy and sticky. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off the stove. I'm probably going to let it cool for just a little bit, get it into a cold space like the fridge, and let it cool, and I'll show you what it looks like in the morning before I give it to the chickens. So I've got it in this old brownie pan, and I warmed it up just enough so that it wasn't cold. Now, if you're going to heat something up before you give it to your chickens, you want to test it just like you would baby food. You don't want to give it to them hot because you could damage their crop. So I made sure this was at a warmer temperature, just enough so it's not going to freeze when I give it to them. Not that I think it's going to last that long, so let's bring it in and I'll show you how much they love it. Here you go, girls. Here's a treat. We're going to let the girls enjoy their treat. Now, if you like this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up and make sure that you're subscribed. And if you have any questions or you have something special that you use to boost the protein for your chickens, make sure you leave that message in the comments. And until next time, everybody, stay warm and take care.